In this video, I'm going to show you how to use saturation and also show you why it just makes music sound better. Here's a section of a song I mixed with all the saturation plugins turned off. And now here is that exact same section again with saturation plugins enabled. Hey guys, welcome to the channel. My name is Andrew, and if you've been watching videos for a while, you may notice that we're in a new space right now. So this is going to end up being my studio. It still is under construction. The speakers aren't in yet. The sound acoustic panels are not in yet, but I'm really excited to tell you about saturation today. Saturation is one of those things where I honestly probably wouldn't be able to have this room and be doing this as my job if I didn't learn how to use it. In the world of music, saturation is just kind of that magic sauce that just makes music pop. You know how people talk about analog warmth? What they're really just referring to is saturation. I mean, look at some of this stuff. You can buy a single preamp channel for thousands of dollars when you could also buy one for a couple $100. Or you could buy a console that only has 48 channels for well over $100,000 when there are digital consoles that are available right now that sound pretty good for just a couple $1,000s. Pretty much the entire reason why these things are valued so highly is because they create saturation and they do it in such a way that is very desirable. Look, there's no such thing as a magic bullet when it comes to mixing audio. There's no trick that works on absolutely everything, but this is just about as close as it gets. I was listening to an interview with a famous front of house mixing engineer named Chris Raybould a couple years ago, and he was being asked some questions back and forth, and one of the guys just asked a question like, hey, if you don't have saturation tools, what do you do to get your mix still sound really polished? And he kind of sat there for a minute and then laughed and just went, I don't. Like, he basically just resigned himself to the fact that if he didn't have saturation tools, it was never gonna get to that top tier level place. And so when someone like that says something like that, you need to pay attention. Saturation is something that just makes mixes sound professional. So now that we know that this is important, what is it doing? Why is it important? Why does it make music sound so much better? I have a demo here that'll allow you to be able to see visually what it's doing sonically. So all I've done here is basically just put a test oscillator plugin on with a sine wave at 500 Hertz. And if we unmute that and then put an EQ on, just look at an RTA, you can see that all it's doing is just a single 500 Hertz frequency, and that's it. Now what we're gonna do is just throw a decapitator plugin, which is just a popular saturation plugin, between the test oscillator and the EQ, which shows the RTA. And if we pull that back up, you can see there's now two lines. And this thing is just on basically off, like it's at its lowest setting. So just so you know, off on this thing, or its lowest setting, is still doing something. But as we turn it up, watch what happens on that RTA. It is taking that one single frequency and creating harmonics of it and making it sound like a fuller, richer sound. All right, that's super annoying to listen to, so I'm just gonna mute the master output of this so we don't have to listen to it, but I'll still show you visually what's happening just for this section. So in this decapitator plugin, we have these different styles, which are essentially just different models of that hardware equipment we were talking about earlier that's so expensive. So you can see how it changes the shape of what specific harmonics are boosted and which ones are not, depending on the model. That's why, you know, people say that specific things sound better. They're not just kidding themselves. A lot of times they literally do, because the harmonic structure of what it's doing is more pleasing for whatever reason. So then what? Do I just put saturation on absolutely everything? In general, no. Sometimes it might be nice to add a little saturation to the master bus of a whole mix, just to give it a little bit of warmth and thickness. But when you're mixing individual instruments and pieces of the puzzle of a mix, you don't want to put saturation on absolutely everything. When I think of what could use saturation, I'm looking for things that sound weak, like they aren't quite as big or strong as they should be. So if you're listening for like a violin or some like pretty thing, like a light acoustic guitar, saturation is not probably the move. Maybe a tiny bit, but in general, that's not what you're looking for. But on big drums or like a bass guitar or something that just needs to be rich and full, that's probably when you should start turning towards saturation plugins. So I've gone ahead and thrown a bass track in that I was sent from a previous mix. In general, I think it sounds pretty good, but I would say it's probably on the weaker side of things. So let's add a little bit of decapitator to it and just see what we can make it do. Let's take a listen before I've done anything to it. It sounds fine, but I think it could use a little more attitude, fullness, and just power to it, So let's go throw decapitator on and just go. I kind of like the N style for bass for whatever reason, but you try all of them. Yeah. Pull this back a little bit just so we're not tricking ourselves with more volume. We always want to make sure of that. Let's pull the tone back a bit to be darker. I mean, come on, that just sounds rich and full and like it's got some attitude now, and it'll cut through a mix better and just make things sound like they're more professional. Saturation, man, it really is the secret sauce in the music industry. I will warn you, it's very, very easy to overdo it with this. So, I mean, sometimes you want to go for that crazy, crunchy sound, but in a lot of music, you want it to be subtle. You want it to be something you don't even really notice. It just feels thicker and warmer. And those harmonics that it's creating will literally make the music fuller and richer, and it will make it also sound louder than the meter says. So it just has a ton of benefits. And if you're not using it already in your mixes, I really think you should consider giving it a shot. All that said, there's a lot more to this whole mixing thing than just a saturation plugin. So if you want to learn how I get the results I get, you can click on one of the videos there or there, and subscribe if you want to see more videos like this. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a like. It really helps the YouTube algorithm push this to more people and gives me more opportunities to continue doing things like this. All right, that's it. Thank you guys for watching. Hope your next mix is better than your last, and I'll see you later.